welcome to another episode of Walking Digital Corridors, the show where we explore the art and science of creating meaningful conversations in today's digital first world. I'm your host, Alex Abbott, otherwise known as the Bearded Sales Guy, and I couldn't be more excited to have you with us today. I'm joined by some of the best in the world of social selling and walking digital corridors, my co-hosts, Jensen and Jordan.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm
both.
Yeah, very well. Very well.
Good. Quick intro.
Yeah, why not? I am Jordan Abbott, Business Development Manager at the Institute of Sales Professionals, also known as the Sales Poet, because I like to tell sales stories in outside of the box ways and make a bit of a tit of myself in the process.
Although saying that, you did do a particularly successful, shall we say, post. Was it last week? Do you want to just tell us about that quickly?
Not even a week ago, mate.
Yeah. So last week had this idea for a post with a video, sort of talking to the fact that, you know, as salespeople, cold calling is sort of a necessary evil, I guess you could say. The vast majority of us, don't like doing it, but have to. Organisations that we work for. So I wanted to take a bit of a funny spin on that. Created this short video. I'll share the link rather than trying to explain it. Yeah. Not really expecting too much of it, and I put a bit of a blurb where I sort of, was honest about my dislike of cold calling and some things that I do to make it bearable, and yeah, it blew up.
60,000 impressions, 700 likes,
90,000 impressions, 676 likes.
Not that you're counting.
Since the post, I've gained 383 new followers, about 212 connections. Connections. Some of those were outbound though that I reached out to, but there was an influx of inbound connections as well.
But the question is, how many net new conversations as a result? But we could.
It's still a little bit early. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. Awesome work, Jensen.
Hi all, Jensen Abbott, BDR, Senior BDR here at Content.ai, and this sun this morning, which is very much a surprise in Leighton Buzzard, is blinding me.
Yeah.
So apologies.
You should get some blinds.
No, I've got some like you stick it on your window like security, and it's meant to actually stop the glare, but it's not doing a very good job of that today. So yeah.
Anyway, welcome. You look a little bit shiny.
I know, I do very shiny.
Anyway, let's get going. So look, in a moment, we're going to dive into some of the most pressing challenges and exciting opportunities in the world of B2B sales. Things like defining your ICP, crafting a compelling narrative, breaking through the noise to reach your targets, and while staying disciplined with your time. So if you're looking to take your sales game to the next level, this is an episode for you. So joining me today is someone who truly needs no introduction in the world of sales, Tony Hughes. Tony is the co-founder and CEO of Sales IQ Global, a globally recognized sales leader and best-selling author. Tony's thought leadership is unmatched. He's ranked as one of the top 3 global sales experts on LinkedIn, the #1 sales blogger in the world. I'd love to hear more about that. And the most read person on the topic of B2B selling on LinkedIn. He's also the author of several highly influential books, including The Joshua Principle, Combo Prospecting, and Tech-Powered Sales. His clients include names like Salesforce, SAP, and Adobe, amongst many others. So today, Tony will be sharing his invaluable insights on everything from defining your ideal customer profile to building narrative that resonates, and even tips on social selling and walking those digital corridors effectively. So grab your notepad. This is going to be a masterclass in sales strategy. So Tony, welcome. It is great to have you.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's good to see you, Jordan, and also Jensen. And I always feel like it's downhill after an introduction like that, but really excited to be having the conversation.
Yeah, no, it's you've certainly got a lot of experience, and you've done some fantastic things and brought so much to the B2B sales industry. I'm really looking forward to this one. With that in mind, 35 plus years in sales leadership. What are some of the key changes in B2B selling that you've observed that most sales teams are really struggling to adapt to today?
Well, Alex, it's really interesting because selling is really a blend of timeless truths and then modern techniques.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at any profession, that's really the case. And it's always been true that to be successful as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a seller, you need reasonable IQ. You don't have to be super intelligent, but you do need very high EQ. You need a very high level of emotional intelligence, emotional quotient. Increasingly today, we also need TQ. We need technical quotient. So I know the three of you are experts in your own rights and huge fans and advocates of social selling. And increasingly today, that's a case of being able to mash up a really good tech stack, that can help you be more effective, especially in a world that's getting noisier and noisier. So, LinkedIn, for example, a lot of people are watching this in LinkedIn at the moment as it streams live. But LinkedIn's become a very noisy, spammy platform where a lot of people are starting to pull away. And in my own experience, I was talking to you about this earlier, Alex, I've got well over 300,000 followers in LinkedIn and more than 20,000 direct connections. But I've just become, as a result of that, this target of spam. And increasingly, although it absolutely breaches the terms of use with LinkedIn, increasingly people are standing up automated sales bots or spam bots, message bots that are just blasting at people. So the answer to the question is we need to take those timeless things of having the right personality, because if you're a fearful, amiable conflict avoider that doesn't like any tension or bad news in any conversation ever, well, you're wired to fail in the world of business development. Like it's just how it is. Maybe you need to work in procurement or accounting or something. So you need the right personality. You need to be a goal-driven person. You need to be intellectually curious. You need to be all about the customer. So that's really important. But then you also need these technical quotient skills to be able to be successful.
Yeah. It sort of triggered a thought of, a memory of some of the training that I've had over the years personally, and, of which I've tried to impart on the boys, the challenger sales method, and,
yes.
Bit teaching new perspectives. How much today would you say do salespeople need to be the teacher in their approach?
Yeah, and I know Brent Adamson and Mac Dixon that authored that book back in 2012 now. Yeah. But again, although that was a fad at the time, and I agree with the concept of be brave enough and earn the right to challenge the thinking of your customer, turn up with a worthwhile point of view, provide some value in the conversation before you start to try and talk about the value you offer in your product, service, or solution. As much as that's true, there's a lot of damage done with challenger selling as well, because people just did not implement it well.
Right, of course. Yeah. But that in itself could be anything. Social selling as a topic means different things to different people. And Jordan and Jensen and I have had many conversations where we talk about the topic, social selling, making an assumption that the person that we're talking to understands what we mean, but they've got their own meaning about it. And I use that just as an example. You could apply that to any method, I guess.
Yeah, it's a really good point that you're making. I think while there is a threat associated with people that do those things badly, there's also a key opportunity because, as you mentioned, Tony, LinkedIn is becoming this very noisy place because people are trying to take analog approaches and just copy and paste it onto digital, or setting up chatbots, AI SDRs. which is damaging because it's creating a lot of noise. But then it also should mean, in theory, that that really human approach does cut through a sea of automation and the same old, same old.
Yeah, and just the thing I notice is a lot of people just do it really badly. So, you know, obviously social proof is incredibly important today. When I think about social selling, there's a number of pillars. Obviously, one of them is that we need to have a really good, strong personal brand. What we know is that if we run outreach at somebody and we manage to hook any level of interest, on average, 70% of the time, they'll come and have a look at us before deciding to engage. So this thing of social proof and building a strong personal brand is really important. But that's not really the act of selling. You know, that's really social proof or building brand. The thing I find is so many sellers who are sort of allergic to rejection have bought into the lie that nobody answers the phone anymore. Like those people that just stick with one channel, you know, let's say LinkedIn, and they just stay in that channel. They're really limiting the chances of them being successful, right? So I love the idea of go and be where your market is. And if people are like, if you were selling into the sort of the retail market in the SMB segment, a lot of those businesses are big in Facebook, you know, so going and being where they are in Facebook and engaging in their channels, like selling in those social platforms is really important. The thing I find that makes it effective is you have to nail your narrative. A lot of people have just got the wrong message. And then the bit we need to put in there before our value messaging is the contextualization or personalization piece. And what I find is when people try and automate that, it's done badly. So, for example, for me, you know, I'll often get emails that are as inane as saying, you know, good morning, Tony. Congratulations on being CEO and co-founder of Sales IQ Global. I go, okay, you've taken my current role as a personalization attribute to mail merge into, you know, the outreach. And people are trying to get bots to do this, but it's just not being done effectively. So blending a level of automation with the creative human piece for personalization, and even being quirky is a really important thing for success.
Yeah, indeed. So, you know, coming to the first point we want to really kind of dive into here around the ICP and the importance of salespeople developing their ICP. Quite often the thought of creating the ICP for salespeople can be overwhelming, and sales leadership or the business don't necessarily get it right. And so they're thinking one way, salespeople are thinking another. You know, for those salespeople that are overwhelmed, what advice would you give them for kind of narrowing focus and avoiding that analysis paralysis when it comes to creating the ICP?
That's such a great question, Alex. So the enemy of every seller is false hope, and the resource they need to treasure is their time. And we need to recognize that the whole world is not the market for us. So, you know, if for example, you know, you sold into a particular market, let's say it was online retail, then you need to recognize, okay, well, what really defines an ideal online retailer for me? You know, are there certain segments of online retail? Is it fast fashion, for example? You know, is it online retail with really good margins? Is it online retail where they don't really define their customer as being a customer unless they've bought 2 or 3 times? So we need to think about, you know, when we think about an industry vertical, we then tend to think about firmographics, psychographics, and technographics. So thinking about size and geography is really important. I've had a lot of people try and sell into a market, and then they discover that no one can make a decision in the remote satellite office. It's all done at head office overseas somewhere. So in your ICP, you know, you would have that the A end of the business, the decision-making end is here in my market, for example. Then you think about psychographics. I'm looking for organizations, for example, that are growing, right? Organizations in steady state, even keel mode, very slow to make a decision. Businesses in crisis are typically driven to just improve cash flow or cut cost. So you might think growth is a psychographic. And then the technographic thing is, especially if you sell technology, So Jensen, obviously you work as a BDR in the web CMS market now in the tech sector. But we're thinking about, well, which very weak competitor products am I looking for? Because we're great at replacing them, especially if it's a company above a certain size and growing. Which tech stack do we coexist with, or that indicate, a high propensity for success? So targeting is really key. And then once we've targeted effectively, we get a good target list, then we can start to invest in doing the research in that list and identifying the buyer personas, those maybe 3 to 10 to 12 roles that we need to sell to in bigger enterprise selling, corporate selling. But who are those key roles, and really understanding a buyer persona, how they're measured in their role. Those two things together is really the beginning of being equipped to build the right narrative, to build the right message.
Yeah. And not, I guess, setting and forgetting, and always being open to refining as you go, as the salespeople on the coalface are performing discovery and learning more about their ideal customer to then further refine the messaging.
Yeah, and the way that would pan out in the real world is, if you think about an industry, every industry has got trends, that it's really dealing with.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the manufacturing sector in my part of the world, it's got to be the toughest sector in the economy to be successful in. We have the highest electricity prices in the world, the highest rents, the highest labor costs, the highest freight and distribution, lowest economies of scale, a government that's dismantling tariff protections, so other goods can flood in. So like if I was selling into the manufacturing sector, understanding that sector and the trends they're dealing with is one good level of contextualization. But then for a buyer persona in their role. So for example, if I was selling marketing automation software to a chief marketing officer in retail, what I find when we think about nailing the narrative, the conversation narrative, 95% of people have the wrong conversation. They basically say, hey, Alex, it's me from this company. We're the market leader. This is what we do. This is how it all works. Are any of these shopping lists of pain points an issue for you? And the problem is people stop listening. Like the best it gets for us is 7 seconds. They often stop listening in half a second because we just sound like a seller. So what I do when I work with organizations is, if the buyer persona, if I was selling to a chief marketing officer in retail, instead of saying I'm with this software company and we're the market leader in marketing automation software, if I said that, only 3% of the market at any given point of time is actively looking for what we sell, but 40% are dissatisfied with results and open to change. All I'll do is generate an objection. We already have a tool. We're not looking to change. I don't have a budget. Talk to the person in our basement that deals with pesky sellers and new vendors. So what I do work with organizations is, when we turn up, we say, hey, Mary, it's Tony from XYZ. Congratulations on, the launch of the new product or the acquisition. Reason for the call, I think there could be a way for you as CMO to drive down cost of acquisition and at the same time increase repeat purchasing. Do you mind if I ask, what's your current strategy to move the needle on those two key metrics? And I'm seeing a lot of CMOs are very focused on this at the moment. Now, if Mary said, well, hang on, that's inside information, I'd need to know a little bit more, I'd say, sure, it's around you being able to more precisely target, and with improved levels of personalization for engagement. That's how we've seen other retailers, and then I'd give an example, reduce cost of acquisition in their world by 28% and drive up repeat purchasing by 40%. Now, I'm not sure whether you get the same results. It's really just why I was asking how you feel you currently benchmark against competition.
Yeah.
So how do you feel your benchmark? And now you're building a conversation around the business case for change instead of pitching what we do.
Are you taking notes, Jensen?
Yeah, why?
No, I mean, are you taking notes?
I am. I'm literally sat here, pen, taking notes, following. What I did do is I just wrote word for word everything you just said, and I'm going to take that full script. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, but do. I mean, it's we're recording this, so it's good. It's good. So, okay, now let's take what you just said there, Tony, and then bring in what you were saying earlier about how difficult it is to kind of cut through the noise, like getting that conversation, like having that conversation is what we crave for. But getting that conversation is what a lot of salespeople are struggling with. And for me, this is where social selling comes in. What do you think?
Well, there's two things we need to think about. You know, like I'm a huge fan of David Meerman Scott's book that he published years ago, The New Rules of Marketing and PR.
Okay.
So, you know, this whole idea of provide value, generate some content, some outbound that attracts inbound engagement, interest, or even leads is absolutely a valid strategy. It absolutely is. The challenge for the vast majority of sellers with that strategy is they're not good writers, right? So obviously writing good content is tricky, and really knowing your audience and your market is key, and it's time consuming. But just grooming your LinkedIn profile, you know, publishing content in a very noisy, spammy environment that LinkedIn's become, I don't think will ever generate enough results on its own, right? So there is a role for social selling. It's one of the engagement channels. We can listen for trigger events in social, like Sales Navigator is powerful. It's an incredible research platform. We can collaborate with others. We can even engage in LinkedIn, you know, through those channels. You can send video, in-mail, all of those things are great. But at the end of the day, the sellers I see that are most successful in the world are thinking, rather than attracting just the 3%, what I need to do is break into the world of the 40%. Because strategic selling by definition is all about early engagement at senior levels where you co-create the business case for investing in change. In other words, you help them go get the budget. You help them secure consensus internally. By the way, The Challenger Sale was a great book, but a much better book was the follow-up, The Challenger Customer.
Yeah.
Talks about how most customers aren't very good at buying. And what you do also, I love that, Jordan. And then also what we need to do is set an unfair advantage for our value proposition, right? So we hardwire some bias toward us, all in the customer's best interest. So what that's about is just uber targeting, right? So for me, in my world, right, I've gone after the leading software as a service companies in the world, you know, companies like Workday, and I've been very targeted, right? So I've contacted them, and I've used multiple channels. I've absolutely honored the social selling rules. I've avoided the social selling sins. I've avoided things like connect and sell. I've avoided being a spammer, but I've watched what they're doing in LinkedIn. I've engaged in a nuanced way. But if you think I need to get to this person at the top, we typically only get one shot at the top. We can't afford to not get it right. Yeah. So if you look at personalization, which is the key, once you've nailed your narrative, right? So if I was approaching a CMO in online retail, I've got my baseline narrative. It's all about them being able to drive down cost of acquiring customers and drive up repeat purchasing. Now I could come up with I call that a double-edged point of view, right? It speaks to their KPIs, it monetizes for their organization. In front of that, I need to add the personalization. Strongest personalization is a common trusted relationship. So if anybody contacted me, said, hey, Tony, Alex Abbott suggested that you and I get together. How's your calendar for next week? Well, I'm thinking, okay, like I might ask what about, but you've got your meeting. So common trusted relationship is the strongest. The next thing is a trigger event, something that's gone on in their world that's created awareness of need, right? It's created awareness of need or awareness of an opportunity. And role-based trigger events, a senior person into a role is usually hired to affect change, right? That's what they've been hired to do. And if they've come from somewhere that's worked with us previously, that's gold. You're combining trigger event and referral together. And then the third way to personalize is the least most powerful, but at least show them that you know them. Like play back an attribute about the company, the industry. You know, it could just be, hey, Alex, I work with CMOs in the online retail industry. And given what's happening in the economy right now, I think there could be a way for you too. And then you just give them the point of view. Yeah. If we open by talking about ourselves, we just create either an objection or a delegation down, right? So this thing of point of view, which what Challenger was about, is really key.
Yeah. And what role does storytelling build? What role does storytelling play in building trust and engaging with those senior level prospects?
So I'm going to be really brutal here, and
Okay.
and maybe a little bit contradictory. Storytelling is really important. So selling at its very foundation is about the transference of belief, right? So are you a true believer in the value that you and your company offers? It's really important. Then it's about the transference of belief. But when we spring from the bushes like a lion ambushing a gazelle, if we're doing proactive outbound, right? So they're not expecting our contact, right? This is different to attraction marketing, right? Doing things in social to attract. But if you contact somebody, best it's going to get for you is 7 seconds, and they're not interested in our long waffling bedtime story about something, right? They're not lonely and bored looking for another friend in their life from the land of sales. They don't lie awake at night, for Jensen, with what you're doing with CMS software, right? Like, no one lies awake in bed at night thinking, do you know what? We need to add more tech to the stack. Do you know what? I want to take on more work and risk in my role by migrating this software system over to something different. Or gee, I've got a slow day tomorrow. I really hope a seller gives me a call and helps me while away part of the day because I'm bored, right? Everyone's just busy and stressed. So those stories are critical, but at the right time, right? So when we're getting into proof, again, if you look at social proofing in our own LinkedIn profiles, rather than us looking like the Uber dragon slayer hunter seller, where a LinkedIn profile is like an online CV, we want to have a lot of those great stories about how we've been privileged to help our customers transform their own results.
Yeah. Brilliant. Now, in a world where time is of the essence, let's say, salespeople are overwhelmed, highly stressed, under a lot of pressure. What are some tips that you've got for salespeople around activity planning and executing on their strategy when they're constantly bombarded with, I also need this forecasting report prepared and I need X, Y, Z at the drop of a hat?
So Gartner, just in the last few months, published a report about salespeople and sales leaders. What they found was 83% of sellers feel overwhelmed. And I think, like our customers, our buyers, a lot of people have said that the world's changed and the buyer is now in control. I actually don't believe that. I think buyers are bewildered and confused, and they're being bombarded and stressed themselves. So there's still a lot of value that we can provide in our own perspective. But yes, what sellers need to do is treasure their time. They need to time block. They need to focus. They need to do things that are repeatable. So selling solutions into verticals to the same buyer personas means that we can get into that rhythm of what we're doing, right? So we're not having to context switch all the time. And then learning how to use a tech stack effectively to give us back time, right? So we know, for example, that there's great tools out there that can record a meeting. They can then transcribe the meeting. They can turn it into a follow-up email that we can send out. They can, just with simple AI prompt engineering is the new skill that all sellers need today. We can just do some prompt engineering, create a CRM note as a summary to the meeting. I can just put into CRM, create an email I can send to the person, identify the actions. All of those things can give us back a whole lot of time. We can, for example, upload the annual report of the company or its strategic plan. AI can start to help us with that baseline point of view. I do a lot of things with prompt engineering with teams. So you can train the generative AI tool, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT, but you can say to it, this is what I sell, so research this company's annual report, their website, help me with the point of view, right? Find me the right piece of context. So I've seen sellers, be able to take something that might take 6 hours down to about 45 minutes. So they really nail the approach.
Yeah. Jordan, Jensen, I'm conscious I'm throwing questions at Tony. Feel free to dive in, but if you don't have any questions, I'm going to just keep going.
No,
and I know
Keep
We're-
going. I'm just making notes and very interesting points. It's just
Yeah.
making my brain tick. So I'm here trying to just
Yeah.
thinking away.
You mentioned AI there, Tony, and with AI and tech rapidly reshaping the sales landscape, what do you see as the most exciting opportunities for sales professionals in what is left of this year and beyond?
In my latest book, this one, Tech Powered Sales.
Yeah.
This is published nearly 4 years ago now. We predicted the rise of generative AI before anybody was even talking about it. It was a very new thing, but no one really thought it was going to do anything big.
Yeah.
We predict in the book that 30% of B2B salespeople this decade will disappear. So, the challenge for everybody is the seller. It's not just the seller, it's any profession, right? Law, accounting, whatever it is. But the seller, the professional that uses AI well, will take the job of a seller or a professional that doesn't use AI at all. So the big fear of everybody at the moment is, will AI, will the bots come and take my job? Well, no, but a seller who uses AI will. So what teams are going to do is they're going to have fewer salespeople. Those fewer salespeople will still earn great money, but they'll be wielding the sword of a really good tech stack, right? So they will be masters at social selling. They will be masters at prompt engineering of these sales execution platforms and tools, and using AI for research, using AI to give them back their time. I've even seen sellers using AI to start to write account plans. That's really kind of comical because they're kind of ticking the box of, I did an account plan, now everyone will leave me alone, because they know that no one ever reads the account plan. They've just got a KPI to get one done. And they've kind of lost the point of doing an account plan, right? It's so you truly know your customer. But what's going to happen is sellers who fail to embrace the tech really well, all of you have in what you do. I've always believed that an old dog that can learn new tricks will run circles around a young pup.
Yeah.
So, but current generations are good at tick and flick, but we need to get really good at effectiveness, right? How do we use our tools to filter for us?
Yeah.
I think it's such an interesting point. I've got 2 questions. Initially, I think it's about where to draw the line in terms of how AI can enable someone versus someone outsourcing to AI, which is damaging, right?
Yes.
For me, it's anything that's customer facing really should be me, and obviously I can use AI to write the email and then I check it, can use AI to do some of the legwork in terms of the research, but anything that is going to be sent out, it at least needs me to look over it, double check, make tweaks. And then the question that I had was, what's the coolest bit of tech that you've seen that's getting you excited? Sounds like the efficiency piece is most important. So maybe it's what bit of tech drives the most efficiency in what you're seeing?
Sales engagement platforms, things like Outreach.io are still incredibly important. ChatGPT, Microsoft's Copilot, if you like, version of all of that is incredibly powerful. So that's giving people back time. Using ChatGPT, to proofread an email or a proposal, to draft things. So Jordan, I agree with you 100%. You want it to be your assistant, not your substitute, is really key. If not that you did ask this question, but you're asking what's the tech that excites me the most at this little point in history right now, it's absolutely got to be Notebook LM. I don't know whether you've seen that, but how it creates a 2-person podcast, it is insane. You can basically upload the installation and instruction manual of a washing machine, right? And it'll turn it into a really interesting podcast of a man and a woman speaking. And if you want to see the insane power of this, Lex Friedman or Feldman, who's Lex the podcaster on YouTube, but he interviews the the president of, now I'm having a mental block, but a president of a South American nation at the moment, the guy where they had crazy, it was Argentina, the Argentinian prime minister. The Argentinian prime minister doesn't really speak English. So what Lex did is he had an AI translator translate and speak, and he's put up this whole recording, and the AI translator sounds like a human being, like it's just incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
So all of the, when you think about creating content and engaging content, the number of things you can do with AI to create videos, to create images and art, podcasts, like everyone will end up with a digital twin, right? That's really going to help them in their day job. So for sellers, everyone who's watching this who's a seller, the thing we know is that every year the target, the quota gets bigger, average deal size gets smaller, the number of competitors expands, right? And just becomes increasingly difficult. And you're thinking, wow, I'm running out of hours in the day to get the things done that will make my number. So what we have to do is, okay, well, how can I get some bots to assist me and do a whole lot of the heavy lifting for me? The challenge for everybody, I'll just leave it with this parting thought. The challenge in automation and AI is that you can very easily burn through a very big database and list of targets and damage your own domain and burn through your list without much result, right? So just be clear about the 3% that are looking. A message about us and our capabilities is maybe okay for the 3%, but we want to build a message for the nearly 50% that are actually open to change if we can turn up the right way. And obviously social selling and social proofing and engaging in all of the channels is a really important part of that. But being really targeted, knowing how those buyers we engage with are gold in their own roles, they're KPI'd, and then nailing that narrative and finding a way to break into the world in a really good, authentic way is really the key.
Yeah. Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your insight with us. Now, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, so in LinkedIn, just search for Tony Hughes. You can go to my personal speaker and author website, tonyhughes.com.au. I'll organize to put this recording up there in time as well, but there's over 100 podcast recordings, free videos, details on my books, and lots of free content there. And for my training and methodologies, it's a company called Sales IQ Global. And Alex and Jordan and Jensen, thanks so much for having me on. I think you're an awesome team. I think every dad's goal in life is to have their kids grow up and not hate them. So,
Hey, I don't hate him.
Yeah, brilliant. All right. Until next time, everyone, have a great weekend ahead.